You are listening to Radio Belvaspata, South Africa. This show is dedicated to those who live and love from the heart in infinite ways. In today's episode, we will discuss, share, gain insights, and get clarity on the wisdom and teachings of the mystic and seer Almin, as well as discover more about the miraculous healing modality called Belvaspata. Your host for this show is Paul.
The rune prediction for the week of September 11 to 17, 2017, says that we should accept the gift of unique perspective that unfolds before us. Be open and receptive to all that is happening around us. Listen to the inner impulses of inspiration and act in accordance with the inspiration of your inner guidance. If an obstacle to the flow of events in your life has been encountered, remove it without, by removing obstacles within. Search for areas where you are not fluidly cooperating with life. Open yourself to accept abundance in its full measure. Listen to the sacred rhythms of your being and consciously focus on inner peace. By holding your attention on inner peace, you become the embodiment of deep peace. Allow your true self to express through you fully. Make a dedicated commitment to being a pioneer of a newly evolved species. Bravely step into the unknown. And that's just an excerpt from the weekly prediction based on the sacred runes of the Infinite Mother as received by the Seer Almin, and it's compiled by Grand Master of the Runes, Ella Jelinek. Welcome to Radio Belvaspata, South Africa, Thursday the 14th of September. It's just gone 8 p.m. South African Standard Time. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode. Tonight's episode is entitled Alien Attacks, Abundance and Self-Sovereignty, but the underlying AKA theme is Living in Abundance, Freedom and Energy. We're going to start off with an audio here from the Seer Almin. It's a little bit old, this one, but beautiful because it's called The Art and Music of the Hidden Realms, and it's from Almin's course Interdimensional Communications, where she transmits messages from the fawns, the shyest beings of all. And this was also presented as a visual meditation, so the video itself has artwork from the Seer Almin, but we're just going to be listening to the music, but the energy and the frequency will be the same. Music received by Sergei, and of course Almin then presenting the transmitted messages. We'll see you on the side of this.
Ja, je own echt. Sakai ya. Me pakitihianus. We are ready now to talk. Ja, ushkitich. Manuch. And communicate to you if you are harmless.
And there was the Seer Almeen giving us messages that she's transmitting from the shyest beings of all, the fawns. And why we're bringing the shyest beings at all is that it reminds us of a comment that we made to a few people this week, and also a reminder for ourselves where she says, there's every place for humility, but not for modesty, and that we need to own who we are and step into that light and step into that particular process. And that's really the theme of our radio show tonight, really understanding how we can make that dedicated commitment to becoming that pioneer of a newly evolved species. There's been so much going on over the last few weeks, really, really intense periods of processing, of experience that are going on. Many of you are posting about it up on Facebook. Many shifts are happening. Even on Facebook, the Almeen page or group is also being disbanded or removed as things change and people go their different ways. So much is happening. It's absolutely incredible. And we haven't even really started to even look at the dynamics of what is happening on the earth and on the planet as hurricanes and tornadoes and floods and fires really just ravage so many parts of the world. Very easy to get trapped up in fear and all the programming of it. But let's look at the bigger picture as we go through everything along the way. And the Seer Almeen will be explaining in a little while about the alien attacks, about that kind of technology that they use. And then we're also going to look at why we need to step into the state of committing to ourselves into a process or becoming that being of a self-sovereign nature. So lots on Almeen Diary, lots on Lightworkers this week coming up. One of the process that came up on Almeen Diary says, we asked the seer to give the reason why the once-in-a-generation size hurricane is expected to slam into the American East Coast, and they're giving a figure of 185 miles per hour this week. Hurricane Irma will pose a dangerous threat to Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas in the coming days. Of course, that's a post from last week, but then the response and everybody working through it. Absolutely incredible just watching the dynamics of everybody at play. Almeen answers absolutely beautifully for me and just really puts things into context. She says, it has been permitted to occur by the masters embodying a conflict. This is the result of emotions not synchronizing with the highest vision. And that's the first part of understanding really about what it is to be in a state of self-sovereignty, to be responsible for our actions, to be responsible for our thoughts, and to be responsible for our journey, as light bringers into the world. And whatever level we're seeing ourselves at, to take full responsibility for all of that. And of course, we're looking at the inner child processes that we spoke about last week and the week before, and the responsibilities that we need to take within a lot. So a lot of that is going on. Almeen clarifies this. She says, in this case, the masters have sought to overcome death, but have not fully embraced life. When that happens, it means that there is some piece of our perception still missing, something we have not seen. Death and life are opposites. To embrace one, but then to reject its opposite pole, is to strengthen that opposite pole. In this instance, it would be death that is being strengthened. Almeen says she doesn't know what the actual answer is at this moment. She's been working on calling forth the rain for the fires within all of us the whole day. And that was just last week because, of course, the fires in Oregon completely out of control. And then fire started to come and help dampen the whole process and put those fires out. More questions were then posed to Almeen. She was asked, is alien manipulation behind these multiple natural disasters? Very deep stuff there. Almeen goes into it and she says, absolutely yes. The retaliation is because their attack and invasion was thwarted. They only know that this originated from America. But the answer for stopping these disasters is the same, no matter what caused them. The question comes up then for her. This feels so overwhelming. There's been an 8.2 earthquake off the coast of Mexico, and they're expecting a tsunami. How do we prevent the feeling of overwhelm? Almeen says there's two ways. The first one, when against overwhelming odds, focus on the details, in this instance yourself. And the second part, combine your efforts, consolidate these solutions. Find one answer to solve more than one problem. Rejoice from your heart, because this brings rain to quench the fires, that you may reinvent and rebirth yourself every day. This will halt the tornado. So if your energy is drained, you're absolutely exhausted, Go look at all of these particular processes for yourself and begin to just live in a different state of rejoicing and just celebrating your life and all of those particular experiences. Very, very important for us to look at. The next question that was posed to this year, well, how do we live self-regeneration? I know for myself, I've been working on creating this mantra within myself that I am in a state of self-regeneration and just allowing myself to build up constantly and to work with all of that. And one of the things that I've been working on very, very closely over the last few months is to not give an identity around myself, around the state of overwhelm that I've been finding myself in. And at one point, I find myself answering people's questions when they say, how are you? I would go, oh, I'm completely overwhelmed. I'm overwrought. I'm over this. And it had started to become an identity. So I had to step away from all of that and not allow myself to use those particular words. And really, I think just become more self-sovereign in my approach. We don't have to answer people in a question the way that they expect. That would create a tribe out of them or out of that particular connection or relationships. But also to just take responsibility for what would be overwhelming me, not to take precedence and put things into absolute context and into the perspective of something that can build who I am. So all this work is consistently going on. Yeah, but let's look at this question of how do we live in self-regeneration. Al-Amin says, before getting out of bed, decide what areas of your life you will be expressing newness in, where you will be remaking yourself. This is a joyous part of self-work. It brings new energy and resilience after hardships. A loss or gain of any kind is a perfect opportunity for a major remodeling of the way that you express your life. Further questions are then posed to Al-Amin about, is there an alien demon connection, etc., etc. Don't go into the depth of it, not necessarily. It's all in Al-Amin Diary if you wish to go check it out. But she says, no, there's not a connection. She says the fires were started by humans, prompted by demonic influence, because drugs that they were using then opened the door to that process. The earthquake and the 2 tornadoes in Texas are caused by hostile alien technology operated from the moon. She says, and this is an important thing for us to look at, not all black magic, which is the exerting of a personal agenda onto outcome, interacts with demons. Humans try to enforce their will, which is done innocently without realizing that it's black magic, every day, for instance. Then the question was given to Al-Amin, shouldn't we be looking at what alien thing is so alien and hostile inside us to be so destructive? Al-Amin answers so beautifully. She says, that's not today's work. Just focus on the details. Al-Amin goes onto Al-Amin Diary, this post there where she talks about the hurricane warfare. And that same question is then posed again to her, that shouldn't we be looking at what alien thing is hostile inside us that can be so destructive? And that's one aspect I've been looking at as well, amongst many parts of our country in South Africa, of how things are easily destroyed and how looting and destruction is happening. I know within Pretoria that there's a whole lot of that going on today at the same time, and it's all just creating absolute chaos. But again, also trapping people in response and reaction and in programming. Just very interesting how our country's dynamics allows us to see all of those things. But again, I suppose there's also an opportunity to do that work. Al-Amin says, the reason we have manifested a scenario where an alien technology could cause such harm to humanity is revealed by the fact that it stems from their revenge for the following. Now look at your energy levels here as she explains it. Number one, these are the same aliens that were excavating for the source of life in the Antarctic. They were ordered to leave. Some defied that and died. Number two, they were ordered to leave the moon. Some defied that and then died. Number three, but they were confident that their cyber attack and the erasing of man's memories in Orion, this weapon is called Mach, that has been planned for 5 years, would restore their ability to again invade the Earth. And that was prevented during the eclipse. If you go to the last few shows of Radio Belvaspata, we're going to some depth of that discussion. Absolutely fascinating. Al-Amin says that they then return to the moon and use technology they've used before to intimidate our country's leaders into submission. It's the manipulation of natural forces to destroy. So you can see the black magic processes in place there on a very, very deep level. But listen to what she has to say here, because when you look at the energy that is lost and wasted all the time within it, it's not a life force, it's not building, it's not enhancing life force. She says the issue is one of revenge. Globally, painful or invasive or alien methods are being used to enhance the body's image to meet expectations. Things like Botox, collagen, liposuction, cell freezing, foreign implants, etc. The body feels under attack and fights back with sudden illnesses. This mutually destructive cycle begins with self-rejection of certain bodily aspects. This is caused by adopting humanity's value system, and this system is alien to God beings. Please work on self-love and self-acceptance. And I think that's one of the hugest things that many of us have been really experiencing and posting about and sharing between ourselves, is that this level of self-love and self-acceptance and acceptance of who we are within, the whole program and process of developing new ways of being. Very, very important to look at. So I'm inviting you right now to use the show tonight just to start to work with it all and to look at all of this. To help us through, with the journey tonight, we've got a new audio called The False Promises of the Soul and Ascension Realms. It was published today. It's really from the recent retreat in Ohio that was in July this year. Almeen was asked to clarify why consulting your so-called higher self is problematic. She explains how the higher self, the soul, is primarily invested in luring the energy of awareness away from the physical body to the realms of death, and will dispense advice according to that. Likewise, the spirit tries to entice you into the totalitarian neutrality of the ascension realms, those illusory levels that have programmed our notions of the holy, heavenly, and saintly. Together with the body and its karma, these three constitute the triad of linear change, the merry-go-round that is the disc of life, powering the dream of duality. Last week we played an older audio about the gifts of duality and how we can learn from living in this particular state and then begin to move forward. So let's listen to Almeen's post today, The False Promises of the Soul and Ascension Realms.
To keep the movement going, because you can see the lengths that the universe goes to make sure there's movement. And we explained this, that you need that movement in a dream. We're in a dream. So the movement is there. How it has been done is the competing for the currency of the universe, which is in energy. Everything competes for energy, just like all the plants in the forest compete for the sun. So the energy of life, when your awareness is focused in this part of the dream, the soul worlds tries to lure you to the soul world. I never understood this. Then I held a week-long retreat, a retreat that was held in Newport, and I said we have to study this issue of the dream time. What I uncovered, I slept with them, we worked nights and days. They gave me permission to follow their dream bodies into their personal dream time, which I did. I learned so much. I had missed so much. I didn't realize that the soul, which slumbers in the body during the day, is the exact same dream body that goes into the dream time at night. I didn't understand that there's interference from beings in the dream that make their way into sleeping people to interfere with their lives. I didn't understand there was as much attempt to control humanity in the dream time as there is in the physical. So it was an amazing experience throughout the week. We all had many miracles. And during that, I started to understand something that I always knew. And that's that when people ask their higher self for permission to sneeze, some people don't even wear their clothes by their own volition. They ask their higher self. So I just knew that those people's lives were a mess. And in general, they were in debt, they had no friends, they had bankruptcy, they had a car accident. I'm going, and you still get your advice from your higher self? I can't believe this. And the highest self, same story. Those people's lives were clearly lacking in many things that had to do with thriving. So I started to understand why once I had this very mystical retreat with this group of women. Because to get the movement in the dream of creation, they compete for your presence because it adds energy to them. Everything wants energy. So these realms, death wants you to give up on life, higher self. It tells you what to do, but it's not good decisions. So higher self wants you to ascend. What does death promise you? It's such a struggle to be alive. Give up. Just come my way. I'll give you rest. It doesn't, but that's what it promises. And pain in your body, no pain over here. Come this way. So people give up their lives. And what does ascension promise? This is heaven. When you come here, you've arrived. No more struggle. Come here, we'll provide you with heaven. But one thing, do exactly what we say. And if you step out of the box, you will tumble back down into rebirth, and you will know you fell out of heaven. You do exactly what we say. You don't laugh too loudly. You don't laugh all your laughter. You don't cry all your tears. And you walk in holiness and sacredness. All the story about holy, sacred things, all of that comes from that level. They have programmed us to believe in churches and be good, and then you go to heaven and the whole thing. It's a conspiracy as much as the soul conspiracy, as much as the physical conspiracy. So this is the issue of ascension. And New Age teachers everywhere, just ascend and you've got it made. Well, excuse me, you can't stay anywhere because the pain of stagnation will push you back out. So you can either keep repeating these cycles, or you can transcend them by moving into a whole other reality, which is what we're doing here. There is no point of arrival. There is only the eternal journey that, per your attitude, can be a grand adventure and a joyous one. But you have to change the perspective. It depends entirely on your perspective. Yes, you don't need to have the hardship anymore. But are you still going to manifest that because you're addicted to tension? It's your choice. But it can get better and better as you walk along, and there's no arrival. It's eternal.
And that was the Sarah Elmine sharing with us the false promises of the soul and ascension realms. That's a bit of mind-boggling process that's going on, but I'm fascinated that she's sharing with it still on this level of processing, because it's not something that we don't know or haven't been told before. Yet I do acknowledge the fact that our programming is so intensely deep within every iota of our being that we do tend to forget these things. But the lure and allure of the ascension realms, very, very big. In fact, I've been connected on social media and Facebook to several healers group and light workers groups and all sorts of this intuitive groups, etc., in the world. And this week I've just had to purge it completely because I cannot see any longer why those questions are being asked. I don't understand it any longer. And it's not that I'm feeling better than anybody. I just know that, there's got to be a trap of holding them in there, and we keep constantly searching within that fishbowl of that matrix of that trap we're never going to be able to go out. Because Almin also says, it's the way that you ask your questions that will matter. But there she said very clearly, the pain of stagnation, very, very big. So, when we are in pain somewhere, then we are in a state of stagnation, and we're seeing that stagnation or that pain as real and not as illusion. So perhaps we're trapped in mind or in emotion or in indecision, and we're not trusting ourselves fully enough as masters and God beings, conscious beings, walking on this earth through this eternal journey, which Almin was talking about there. And she really highlighted that point, that there's no point of arrival for any of us. There's just this journey that unfolds, and it's our perspective that needs to change all the time if we are to appreciate what we are seeing every single minute of the time. I read in one of Almin's other publications and books earlier today that, there's such beauty in a flower if we would just see the beauty of that and allow our perspective to include it. But she says at the same time that there is amazing amount of beauty in every other thing. So we sometimes tend to focus on what we think is the big instead of the small, and there's realities there that we can create for ourselves. The discussion on Almin Dari has continued during this week. It's been really, really interesting. The title of the one post is about preventing acts of alien terrorism. And then the question was posed to her, how can we prevent further acts of alien terrorism against humanity? And I find that the answer that Almin gives, again, mind-boggling in its hugeness, in the largeness of the perspective. She says, all beings are expressions of the infinite's being. If the infinite chooses not to express them anymore, then they cease to exist in a way that dissolves the template of the individuation forever and in all realities. They could not hide nor run from the results of their defiance of the infinite. This alien race, wherever they were located across the cosmos, ceased to exist this morning. And it was just 2 days ago that came up on this particular post. Just like a simple comment that they ceased to exist this morning because the infinite no longer expressed. And decision was made. And I think we need to also understand that, we are expressions of the infinite. And perhaps, yes, on an individuated level, and we've got all our programming going on. But we should also choose what we no longer wish to express and work on. And are you finding that for yourself happening? Because Nick and I are finding that we are really much more direct and straightforward to people, sometimes too straightforward for people. They don't expect this from us. They expect us to be maybe, in the knowledge or awareness of the relationships that they used to have with us, and they're not liking the fact that they're not seeing us as kind or gentle any longer. But we are all of those things, and we express all of them. We just simply express in a more straightforward level and take ourselves to a point where there's no wastage of energy, because literally we don't have the time to sit and work around this one and that one all the time. Just simply move on. Let's get to the point. Let's move forward. And it seems to create a much more different dynamic. People are not always aware of it. The message from Almin also comes up there. She says, beloved ones, the rain that you created with your self-work was a great relief, and portions of the fire have been contained for the first time. This is the fires in Oregon. Please rejoice in the fluidity of your life as a master, how you can rebirth the way you interact with life every day. Those who are trapped in identities and belief systems and worldviews do not have such a freedom. They are trapped by their beliefs. As you rejoice, the rain will fall. As you fluidly reinvent parts of your life, the tornadoes will dissipate. So they're all there for a reason. And I think that we need to also look at these alien aspects within ourselves. But as Almin was saying earlier, that's not the work on today. Focus on the details and make your choices. A very interesting process that was going on as well today is that, one of our pet dogs has not been well at all and has a skin condition. So we've had to look at that as well in terms of, the animal is there within our environment. What does it mean for us? We've had to continue working with it as we're going along. She's been a little bit ill the last few days, and the dog's been throwing up, and then today she's got diarrhea. And we're just trying to sit and work with her and then decide, do we need to take her to the vet, or do we need to just let it come out and just support her? So we decided just to wait a few more hours. But she seems fine. And then today, guess what comes up on Almin Dari, or I think it was yesterday, about relationship messages in our environment. And the question that was posed to Almin, why is the dog throwing up blood? And we saw there was blood within our dog this morning. Not huge amounts of it, of course. It wasn't for us a huge emergency, but something we need to keep an eye on and then make a decision as we're going through. And this person says, well, I guess it's off to the doggy hospital now. The answer that Almin provides says, the dog situation has a message for you. In your relationships, loving others is still being done in the old way, one of dependence, codependence, or the independence of not allowing yourself to love. You need to examine it. It needs to transcend and be replaced by a higher form of loving. Well, that's been something like huge for me because, within our relationship, and again, I can only share my experiences as we're going along. Nico might have his own experiences. Our daughter Zia might have her own experiences. You're going to have your own perspective and your own experiences as you're going through. But what is most interesting is that the dynamics of relationships are definitely changing. I was saying to Nico the other day how we actually talk to each other has actually shifted and changed on such a level now that we are not coming from a state of dependence, but a state of perhaps authority and being the master of ourselves, but also recognizing the other one in each other's space. So I am really grateful for that. But of course, now I'm looking at him through the glass. He's kind of smiling at me, but I'm sure he'll deal with me later on that particular aspect. But yeah, we need to transcend the old and the old belief systems and the ways of doing things. And even though some of those programmings are there for you and for me and for everyone, I think we are in a very strong state of recognizing it and know that we are purging the old. And there's this newness coming in, and we are honoring that particular newness. And for that, I just tribute this show to each one of you, healers, light workers, and masters that are listening to the show, either live or through the broadcast, the podcast version of it. Another post that comes up in absolute relation to today's show and the subject matter. Remember, AKA also living a life of abundance and energy and in the right amount of love and understanding. The post is called the Throne of Self-Sovereignty. The question posed again about the fires. Now remember, we've spoken about fires. We've spoken about smoke. South Africa, we've been through it all. We've been through the floods. We've been all of this going on. And now suddenly worldwide, there it is coming up. And again, I'm just so fascinated by the insights that we have here living in South Africa and the roles that we play and how things just start to move in such a big level. And the dynamics of living in this country and the interactions that go on. Really fascinating. But yes, we're all here for a reason and we need to understand that. So, the throne of self-sovereignty, the question posed to Almin, the fires in Oregon are getting better, but not quite gone. Is there another insight that's missing? Perhaps around the fact that all this hardship was caused by a teenage boy wanting to show off and tossing fireworks into the gorge. Almin says you're absolutely right. The one teenage boy causing so much trouble is the key to the insight. It's like the tail wagging the dog. If someone in the same level of reality as you are thinks you are inadequate, it affects your self-image in a subtle way. If they don't like you, it detracts from your ability to excel. The emotions that others project onto us directly influence our lives. This has to change by not taking others' opinions and reactions into consideration to guide your actions. This is contrary to the authentic expression of a master. By acting from your inspiration rather than manage others' responses, puts you on the throne of self-sovereignty of your life. Is that not absolutely just incredible? A few lines from the seer, and it just puts it all into context for us where we are at. And I really hope that, as a listener to the show and as a part of the show, that you're listening to this. I'd love to hear from you. So please send us a few messages, either now or on the WhatsApp group or that we have within South Africa or here on Spreaker.com. You can share with us whatever you feel there and just add to that particular dynamic. Excuse me very much, a bit of something in my throat there. All right, we're going now to another class given to us by the Master Diane. It's the Principles of Hope, number 9 and 10. Fascinating insights here, and just listen to the sovereignty of the process and the relativity of the discussion that we are having tonight. Absolutely incredible. This Diane did about 3 weeks ago, but because of some of the technical aspects of the show, we didn't play it on the show that it was intended for. So we're now 2 weeks, gone down the line here, but look how this actually fits in. Let's listen to Diane, Principles of Hope, number 9 and 10.
Good evening, listeners. Good evening, Paul. Good evening, Nick. Tonight, we talk about the principles of hope. We talk about number 9 and number 10. But before we get there, let us think of the field visually. Let us create a picture in our minds, and let's see the field perhaps in the shape of a circle, each principle a segment, like a slice, which is illuminated when the light of awareness shines on it. Well, we have illuminated principles 1 to 8 so far, and the rest, 9 to 16, lie in glad expectation, already in place, waiting for our awareness to light up the segment, to reveal the wholeness. Now, although a circle, as the light of awareness touches the segment, the field is revealed, and we see that it is boundless and limitless. Let's have a look at principle number 9. Choosing perspectives of aware optimism. Now we know that perspectives hold the power to change situations as it creates the reality of our lives. Perspective creates a heaven of hell and a hell of heaven. Such is the power of perspective. When we see life at face value, looking just at the appearance, we feel helplessly hemmed in by conditions. We feel like victims. We feel like the effect of the cause. However, if we consciously choose optimism, if we see beyond the appearance, we take responsibility for our lives. Our ability to respond then is limitless, and we see with eagle vision the possibilities. Also, if we have no connection or preference to outcome, all is perceived as gifts or lessons. This principle, it seems to me, is not about fixing or almost like a self-improvement project or even positive thinking. This is about consciously responding to situations in the moment and then choosing responsibly the array of choices presented. We talked about eagle vision and seeing the whole picture. That in itself allows for freedom of movement. Principle number 10 talks of broadcasting the song of hope as a life-giving lesson to all. As we and our lives reverberate with praise, love and gratitude, a song of hope and glad expectation pours forth and blesses all with whom we come into contact, and even beyond. The benevolence of life opens the sluice gates of abundance, abundant grace, abundant eternal supply, the abundance of knowing of the indivisibility through the sacred union of the one and the many. Your composition, my composition, our song of hope is being created at this very moment. See your song, hear the strains of your music gently touch the ears of loved ones, gently touch the ears of friends, acquaintances, strangers, in fact, all sentient life in your reality. See the field of hope pulsating in light and sound. So alive are you, so alive am I. Good night, all.
Absolutely powerful that was. Thanks to the Master Diane. I really have just emotion caught up in my throat right now. Really incredible. Thank you, Diane, for creating that, and how pertinent for tonight, and just understanding this process of, we choose our perspectives, and it's just wider optimism that comes up. And I love your explanation about glad expectation and awareness that lights up this field and takes us into states of boundlessness and limitlessness. And then the Master Michelle, also Team Belvas, but South Africa, has really posted some incredibly beautiful words up on on Spreaker.com here on the show's site. And she's just talking about everything is bigger than the potential, and her realizations this week, because her son and his fiancée was also caught up in the hurricanes in the open sea. And now she had to actually just let all of that go and begin to work with it. She says that she's knowing that she has nowhere to be as she plays in the infinite playground, and there's nothing to prove. And the only thing that she needs to be is a master of her own life, and that's it. And she finds it incredibly liberating. So lovely to see within just our team members alone what is going on and what their experiences are, and the authenticity of that particular process. So, we are having all of these experiences. We're doing the work as it comes up. We're living in this particular moment and starting to work with it all. And it's such an honor for us to be able to share this with each one of you around the globe. And of course, to have you share with us at that same level. Really, these incredible moments that come up within the show. Absolutely incredible. Thank you, everyone, for doing that. Something else also massive manifested this week, a milestone in the cosmic order and the cosmic process. You'll remember that last week we were playing Almina. She called in another 1,296 different angel guards in order to bring balance to the processes of the angels and demons processes going on, and we've seen such a balancing effect happening. In fact, I felt this last week so much more supported on so many different levels, like there's a bigger team behind me now on a cosmic level. And that was very, very comforting through all the different aspects and processes. But definitely what I am learning to do is to live in the present moment and focus completely on that, because as I've been saying in earlier shows, that if I'm not careful, it becomes overwhelming. And again, the decision was made earlier not to allow that to really take over, but simply to understand that I am the master, and I stand proud in this moment within myself and deal with what is right in front of me. And this is this aspect of presence. And you'll remember, or perhaps the Belvaspata masters amongst us will know, that the sigil that's been used to treat various cancers within the modality of Belvaspata has been the sigil of presence. And that is part of general Belvaspata, some of the levels there. But this week, what was released was mind-blowing for me, is that a pre-release was given to us up on spiritualjourneys.com and Almin Diary, the Belvaspata for the healing of cancer. And I just feel for myself that I'm so much more living in this present moment, yet fully aware that each moment influences what can come as I step forward into each moment anew and working with all of that. But what an incredible gift has now come to humanity is that it's titled "The Moment is Here." The proper protocol for cancer could not previously been given to humanity before this moment, for cancerous conditions existed in the macrocosm, of which man is the representation, or the microcosm. And as this was released this week, I downloaded it instantly so I can keep it and start to work through it all. It's a speciality Belvaspata healing modality. It's available online now on Spiritual Journeys, $20, so it's really well worth downloading, and you get your own personal copy of it. But is it not fascinating to know that humanity is now ready to heal from cancer? And if we look at the dynamics of healing on this world, the amount of cancer that is going on, the amount of processes that is going on is just really, really deep. About 4 months ago, I went to a hardware store which we buy our hardware from, and the couple that ran that particular business, always up and out there and, living life to their own processes and decisions, whatever they needed to do. It doesn't really matter. They were standing in the back of the shop, and I said to them, what's happened? What's the matter? Because I could see they were dealing with something. And they just simply said that, the husband has now just been diagnosed with cancer, with stage 4 cancer. And I knew that as I stood there, there's a feeling of wanting to support and wanting to help and wanting to heal. That's still there, that programming there. But I just stood there and I said to them, I'm really sorry to hear this, and there's nothing more I can say except to say that if you need me at any point as you go through this journey, then please understand that I'm there. But I can't give you advice because it is not my experience. And they turned around and they said, thank you very, very much for that, because everyone else has been telling them what they have to do, and it is getting them extremely angry, because how dare other people decide for them what is right for their particular journey. Well, subsequently, the husband has passed on, a few months down the line along the way, but I'm watching his widow now, the wife, stepping up and living her life in a completely different way, but posting aspects of living in gratitude and just trying her absolute utmost to live in a new life and a new way of presenting. And to me, that's, mastery. That's the way that life goes. So absolute tribute to them and learning a lot by just watching that particular journey. But is it not fascinating to know that with the release of Belvaspatar for the healing of cancer, that the world is now absolutely ready to move away from a cancerous situation? You can go to the download, if you like, on Spiritual Journeys. It gives more information about the book that is available as a download, and it gives you more insight into that particular process. Absolutely incredible, and I am in deep gratitude for the Sia Al-Amin for bringing this through for us, as I am in deep gratitude for each one of you for also carrying this particular energy. But we are living in the present moment, and I feel so empowered through the ability to understand that I am able to do this more and more and more, and I look forward to developing that along with all of you. Do share. All right, so from October the 20th to the 22nd, there's a magical and unique event taking place in Moscow. It's a 3-day seminar designed by the Sia Al-Amin. You remember about a month ago I said that there's 2 particular meridians in my body which are burning away. And it was just on the left and right hand side of the body. And I just couldn't work through all of this, but then slowly all this information came up into play, and we started to release that as the masculine and feminine let go, and we started a new journey of I don't know, how could we call it? Androgyny, I think is the word, and working through all of that. But this seminar is called the Tablets of Fire. It's about the 8 global meridians and their portals. Al-Amin has described it by saying, oftentimes people move into other realities, but they can't sustain it. And then they step back out again because they don't realize by moving into another reality, many of their old things have to be shed. Great changes have to come into your life to make room for the whole new way of living. If we didn't manage that, then from the future we may have seen that it was crucial to manage that, to avoid many unpleasant futures for the planet, and that we needed some guidance. So this is the ultimate aim, to teach us how to live the life of high magic, how to establish our own reality, which is the reality of the white light, and in doing so cutting the ties with the old realities of duality and not playing those games any longer. It teaches us how to live as a white light being that is something that hasn't been achieved before. So that is the purpose of this seminar, the Tablets of Fire. Many times people have gone into the 3rd level of resurrection, couldn't sustain it, went back to where they were before. I just haven't emphasized that fact because I had firmly believed that you act as if you're already at a certain stage, and soon it then becomes your reality, rather than looking at it like a step up or a step down thing. That can be very discouraging. But in this instance, clearly, we are trying to tell each other, this is the curriculum you have to learn, and it has come from the future. I thought, was Al-Amin saying, okay, maybe this has come from thousands of years ahead, or maybe even 1,000 years ahead. Nope. Okay, well, maybe it came from hundreds of years ahead. No, it came from the 2030s, in the 2030s, 2030s. And it looks to me like 2032. But then I also see the flash of 2036, so I'm not sure what's going on there. So that's why I'm a little vague about that. But maybe it was formulated for 4 years between 2032 and 2036. But that is the dates I see. Now, the only interesting line through a dot that I can see is that in 2032, time travel backwards becomes a lot more able. Currently, there are time travelers, but they can't. They're witness mode only. They can only watch. they can't really affect the past. They can't affect the past. The backup plan is the meridians. Your meridians, because we are not individuated, as in packages that are isolated, everything that happens to us still affects everything else. Higher, and well, there isn't higher in terms of the original ones, but it affects all life. The pathways that broadcast that change between the highlight reality and the other realities are the meridians in your body. You don't have to try and save humanity. You just have to live the highest truth of where you are right now, which is what we are going to be learning. And it automatically is taken like a railroad track. It is taken and run through your body, through those meridians, and broadcast out through all realities. They are interdimensional pathways. So you are still doing sacred government for humanity. You're just not doing it as directly, because the focus is now more on self-government. And I think that describes exactly the experiences I'm going on. It's just govern the self, work with yourself, stay in this highest reality that you possibly can. Don't let other people take it away and play those games. And boy, some of those games are being played. Right, so just to help us along this, because I know some of us are still experiencing some painful processes, which we've gone into. The pain of stagnation was brought up earlier in the show today. We have another short audio from Almeen. She's talking about transcendence. It's living an experience without pain. It's from the Underworld series, published in 2013. But Almeen now talks here about the 3 stages of linear change and the capstone of change, which is transcendence. In transcendence, we travel up the pranic tube to access the higher realities, as detailed in the mystical sigil enclosed within the DNA rose. This was recorded at the Shamanic Women's Retreat in September 2013, but see how relevant this is still for you.
Let me first say the question. She asked me how it is that she cut off her fingers, which she has grown back. When she was a little girl, her hand was completely shut in the car door, flattened, and by the time she got in the house, the hand was healed. In both instances, she felt no pain. She said to me, we really need to understand this formula, because if we do, we can apply it when people are ill or sick, etc. And so I'm going to give you the formula of how to experience things without pain, how to take blows without it affecting you. We have said that the kingdoms of pristine humanness, the God kingdom and the magical kingdom, have different ways of change. The pristine human kingdom's way of change is transformation. And transformation is to shed the old. Then God kingdom uses transmutation. They take, their strong suit is perception. So they take hardship, they gain the perception of it, and then the hardship's no longer needed. And the hardship has now released within it the power. It turns hardship to power through perception. That's alchemical. And that we can describe as transmutation. Then, when we look at the magical kingdom, its way of change is transfiguration. It takes a flattened little hand of a little girl that had it stuck in the car with nobody to comfort her, and it heals it. We have many stories of miracles, of things that have changed like that. This is the magic of transfiguration. There is a different way of change. Think of these 3 ways of change, the 3 stages of linear change is what we call it in the book Journey to the Heart of God, as a flat triangle. Think of it as your pranic tube moving up and down and to the top of the pyramid, and at the top of the pyramid there is the form of change known as transcendentalism. Actually, wrong word. Transcendence. Transcendence. When you are, if we look at the DNA rose, we have said it isn't flat. Otherwise, we can't do the God magic with it that we've given you in the online courses that uses a different overlay on the rose for every single different purpose. For instance, cellular regeneration has a specific template. Then you get the next template for abundant life through miraculous living. That's another template. Because these are like slices of bread that's turned on its end. Slices of bread. Each template's on a different slice of the rose. What is the rose? The rose is a living fountain of awareness that actually bubbles up, and it is ever new. It only gets static when we have belief systems, when we have personal identities and stories, when we have worldviews. This is the way the world is. So, when we approach life like that 2-year-old, what next? What adventure is there? And we approach it with the humility, and this is the definition of true humility. Not that one is less than another, but true humility says, I live in an ocean of unknowability. I know nothing. I am open, therefore, to experientially learn everything. So, when you are at a certain level of life and something bad happens, you can actually raise your awareness to another level of life, and from that other level of life, you are less physical and it doesn't hurt. An example would be, we have had several instances now with my daughter and myself in the car where there were unavoidable accidents and the cars just went right through us. The car jerks, we feel totally nauseated from the low level of consciousness that just moved through us, but it does not impact us. Because the moment before the impact, we raised to a higher non-physical level. We transcended the reality in which it would have caused injury or pain. So, yes, we come back down to that reality, but we can come and stay a little bit above the reality and again avoid the pain. We can see that the hand's been crushed, it needs attention, like let's say a vein has been cut or something. Many times those who live in the God Kingdom don't bleed, actually. I've noticed that with my daughter, that when she's deeply cut, there might be one little drop of blood and nothing else. You have to make yourself bleed in order to produce the blood. So, but sometimes if there's blood, you can see that it needs to be tended to, it needs to be bandaged, you need to put a tourniquet on perhaps if it's very severe, but you're observing it from this transcended level where it really doesn't hurt. So in her instance, she has used transcendence, moving up and down the Kundalini, moving higher up in the Kundalini, is a way to move yourself into a higher reality. It's a way of drawing the energy up the Kundalini. And it pulls you into another reality. What makes that reality different? What makes it not so physical? its building blocks sing a higher note. The frequency component sings a higher note.
And there we were listening to the Seer Almeen from a class back in October 2013 as she taught us all about experiencing transcendence without pain. Very relevant at this moment as well. Just a good reminder of the journey that is going on. So as we come to the end of the show tonight, I'd just like to share with you one thing that we normally don't really go far ahead into the weekly predictions, which come out, 4 or 5 days before the next week. But the rune prediction, Almeen's weekly rune prediction for September the 18th to the 24th, very relevant for the theme of the show, getting our energy back, living in abundance, and creating the state of self-sovereignty. She says it's all about renewing your expression. Rune 2.19, the description: the evolution of the holy ones on earth has reached a critical point. It is standing at the threshold of a new way of living, a greater destiny, and a reality of great possibilities. It requires that you take an objective look at the addictions and attachments to human entertainment. Release the ties to the human paradigm. That which you are becoming requires that you renew your expression every day as you travel your infinite and eternal journey. Isn't that absolutely incredible? Here we're going to sign off now just with a short comment by the teacher Matt Licata. He says, on this new day, take a moment to touch the earth. Dare to take a break from the trance of improvement and slow down. Breathe deeply. Open into the reality that there is no such thing as an incomplete moment. Life is not something you need to master or perfect, but to rather surrender in and participate with. Like water flowing downward in between the rocks in a stream. The water is not mastering or perfecting anything, but yielding to pure wisdom essence. That's the author and healer teacher, Matt Licata. It's been an absolute pleasure to have had you with us this evening. And if you're listening to us live, thank you for doing that. If you're listening to us in the podcast version, mostly people in the Northern Hemisphere listen to that because of the time differences between us. You're more than welcome as well. We love having you aboard. We love the comments. Thank you so much indeed. Thank you to Nico as well for handling the sound desk like he does so masterfully every single Thursday. This has been a great pleasure to spend the last hour with each one of you, with us here in studio, with all my team members, and with everyone that is listening. I am in absolute humility, I think, of the honor of being able to share this radio show with you each and every week and being able to step by step onto the next bridge, onto the next rung as our lives unfold day by day. I feel you close in my heart, and I hope that I'm close in yours. And on behalf of Team Belvaspita and Radio Belvaspita South Africa, until next week, love, praise, gratitude, and trust. Good night.
You've been listening to Radio Belvaspita South Africa. Thank you for listening and sharing in our discussion. Should you have any questions with regards to the healing modality of Belvaspita or have any healing needs, please send us an email to info@belvaspita.co.za or add comments to our page on Spreaker.com so we can work on providing a suitable response. We now close this episode with the eternal ascension qualities of love, praise, gratitude and trust, and look forward to sharing again with you next week. Goodbye.